All-American tandem.
Okay.
First of all, it's the highest winning percentage since Sirianni joined the Eagles. So Sirianni's at .701, second only to the great Andy Reid and his Chiefs run, of course.
Yeah.
So that includes the playoffs. But then if you open up the aperture a little bit, Coach,
Okay,
and you say, you know
open.
what, let's just start it post Vince Lombardi's Packers. Here's the highest win percentage of everyone. It's John Madden at 739, and then Sirianni at 701, including the playoffs. So you might not believe in quarterback wins. You might not believe in defensive edge wins. That sometimes, I bring that up.
Yeah. I got it.
Jay Watt doesn't win any playoff
Yeah.
games. You might not believe in wide receiver wins.
So do you think Nick Sirianni is one of the greatest coaches of all time?
It certainly looks like it.
Okay.
It certainly when the coin is flipped and the game starts, Nick Sirianni walks off the field 701 times out of 1,000 games.
Yeah.
With the win, second only to John Madden. That's just
So
the proof is in the pudding.
And the other pieces of that pudding are ownership and general managers 1 year ago considered firing him. They took all of his power away in that offseason, wouldn't let him pick his staff. And then after their bye last year, his home fans were chanting "Fire Nick."
We're gonna. I don't know.
in
The whims of Philadelphia fans.
In the playoffs, we talked about on this show last year after the Rams game that if they had completed that drive, he might have been fired after the divisional round loss because it would have been such a travesty that they lost. So I can absolutely concede the point. He seems to be able to motivate those guys, and they believe in him more than I thought they would, and that he has worked for them without having to concede the point that this guy is a great coach, full stop, or much less an all-time great coach. And I know you want me to just bow to the record, which will change over time, but I think you're going to be nicer to me on this because Coach is going to agree with me, and while you like yelling at me, you don't like yelling at Coach.
Coach is a facts guy, too. Coach values winning football games.
I do, and one of the things I miss being away from here is the way that you open the aperture.
Yeah.
The way you open the aperture was fantastic.
Photography term.
It's hard to disregard his success, and so there's 4 seasons. He's been to the playoff all 4 seasons, been to the Super Bowl twice, was able to win it, has had different quarterbacks, has had different coordinators. There's been some issues, and he has been under fire, which is similar to other head coaches in Philadelphia, what they've experienced. What I liked a lot about Lane Johnson's comments was him talking about when things came up, he was willing to go in front of the team and hold people accountable. And he held people accountable, the players accountable, the coaches accountable, himself accountable. And that's hard to do. It's hard to have the difficult conversation, and it's hard to have the difficult conversation publicly in front of the team. And it looks like he's got the ability to do that. And he's also has the ability to take a look at the things he's not doing very well and try to change them also. Now, do I think he's an all-time great head coach at this early
second
point?
greatest of all time.
Well, the numbers dictate that.
Yeah.
But I do feel like we need to give it maybe a smidge more time.
What do you want me to do? Go to another Super Bowl?
Yeah,
I would-
probably.
I
Go to a
to be an
third
all-time
Super
great
Bowl
coach.
in
Yeah.
5? No, he just deserves the respect that we give to Sean McVay, who went to a Super Bowl and lost and went to a Super Bowl and won. But because he doesn't rattle off plays from 5 years ago preseason games, there's not this universal
also,
respect
hold on.
for
But
Sirianni.
this is, and I guess we're late and we're going to do this more later.
We're supposed to be off.
Sean McVay never had his power stripped, and they never talked about firing him. So we can't
Who
pretend.
cares? Why does that matter? Things that were going to happen and didn't happen.
Things that did happen.
Kraft was going to fire Bill Belichick. Should that be held against Bill Belichick?
When was Kraft going to fire
Early
Bill
on, when it was like pre-Tom Brady. That was after him having a losing record and starting slow. That was in the midst. Am I wrong on that?
No, that was in the mix.
In the midst.
Oh, year 2 Belichick. Okay.
And he's fired by the Browns. Like, I don't think that it's fair to say, yes, he was covered in Gatorade at the Super Bowl in a Super Bowl blowout against a team that was on the verge of a dynastic run.
And I don't think it's fair to say because he and Sean McVay both have been to 2 Super Bowls, won one, lost one, they're equivalent coaches. And I think that
Why?
Because I think that there are obvious, tangible things that Sean McVay is better at than him, and it's not rattling off stuff. And
Okay. I mean, first off, Andy Reid was fired. I don't know why they didn't bring that one up. And Andy Reid's an unbelievable coach, so. Okay. This continues to be such a funny conversation to me. I really love what Mangini said here about holding players accountable and the importance of that. There's other aspects of coaching that is incredibly underrated. And I get it. At the end of the day, if my back is up against the wall, it's like I do want someone who fundamentally is leading the charge with the X's and the O's. The game plan, the one who the person who can directly give me answers to a problem that I'm having on and off the field, whatever it may be. And that at the core of Sirianni is not his selling point. That's not. That is at the core of an Andy Reid, of a McVay, etc. And so, like Sirianni is definitely more of a walk around coach, culture guy, running the team from a more of like a top down approach rather than zoomed in. And I get why one is often valued over the other. I do. At the end of the day, it's just like, who's calling the plays? Who is calling the plays? But what I don't like is that we then downplay what a Sirianni does, which is why I pointed out before that I like that Mangini said, like, it's so important to be able to face the team and to really have these honest conversations, because you have coaches that can't do that do fundamentally understand the X's and the O's, and they can't. That's why we've seen plenty of great coordinators fail as head coaches. Just straight up fail at running a team, understanding how to run practices, understanding how to talk to an entire team. Like, these things do matter. And I've told you guys from my own personal experience with a completely just a whole spectrum of coaches in a million different sports at a million different levels. And I've been very fortunate to be coached by like literal professional coaches or ex-professional players, like real coaches, not like just kind of like, oh yeah, he played in the pros for a day, like real coaches. I've been very lucky in that regard. And I've had coaches that were absolutely unbelievably amazing, and I've had coaches that were absolutely awful. I've had coaches that have made me feel like I can do anything and empowered me and got the best out of me, but they fundamentally did not understand the game better than even I did, even at a younger age. And I had other coaches that knew everything under the sun and could in a practice could absolutely positively make me the best version of myself and maximize every little juice of talent I had. But they were awful leaders. And when it was time for the games, they did not bring the best out of me. They brought the worst out of me. And it's just like it's a delicate balance. And it's something that I've reflected a ton on, and something that I still to this day think about, because I think about, it's just like the type of person that I want to be and the type of coach that I want to be, whether it's in a more casual setting or in a more formal setting, the way how I have these conversations. And it is something that I really find fascinating. And I think people fail to really understand the value of a coaching. And this is something that I bang the drum a lot on, but I think I talked about this a lot in the past, where it's like people who haven't really played a lot fail to understand the importance of great coaching and the impact. But I think it's also even deeper than that. They fail to understand the nuances of what makes a great coach. And it's so beyond maybe your experience of when you played like Little League and you had someone's dad be the coach. Like, it's a fundamentally different experience. I mean, it's just different, especially when you've been coached or you're on a team where you're spending an insane amount of time with them. Like you're alone with them, going across the country. You're on a plane with them. You're on a bus with them. Like it's just you. Like you're like it's a different experience entirely. That you just don't get from like a intramural sports. That's why I often use like a cutoff as like high school. It's like if you played like for like a high level program in like high school or something, I feel like then you could probably speak to this more than something a little bit more casual. But it's just the nuances of coaching are just that they're incredibly nuanced, and I'm not prepared. Like, but with that same rant, like I'm not prepared to say that Nick Sirianni is one of the best coaches of all time. Like that's not how I operate at all. And I understand that there were concerns about Sirianni in the beginning, understandably so. And the way how Philly operates is like there will continue. Like it's almost like you're guilty until you're proven innocent. In Philly, it's like you better keep winning. Like if Sirianni has 2 losing seasons, or he misses the playoffs this coming year, and the next year they make the playoffs and then get knocked out in the wild card, people will be saying, "Get Sirianni out of here." That's the way it works, and in a lot of ways, I understand it. I really do. I understand. It'll be the same thing with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is praised, Super Bowl MVP, etc., etc. You got people like me making videos endlessly about him. He has 2 bad seasons or 2 kind of average seasons, and people are like, "Hey, so-and-so, the Eagles are drafting 10th in the draft, and John Smith's available. Should the Eagles draft him?" I mean, that's how they operate. I mean, that's their proven track record. It's keep up or get left behind, man. Like, and that's how it works, and I respect that. I respect that a lot. I really do. I'm not saying it's 100% the best way to do everything, and I think, again, of course, there's nuance. You have to figure out when you give someone some space to fail and when it's time to be like, all right, we gave you everything we could, but now it's time for a different direction. And that's why I always point, and the longtime watchers, Grover, is going to be upset because he always says Dak is catching strays. But it's like, that's why I point to like Dallas Cowboys. It's like, if you think the Philadelphia Eagles are going year after year after year with Jason Garrett and Dak Prescott, it's like, that's not who the Philadelphia Eagles are. And there's a fundamental difference why the Eagles have gone to all these Super Bowls in the last decade or so and have the second most playoff wins in the last 25 years. And a team like the Cowboys don't. I mean, if you think the way how the Commanders had been run pre-Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels, if you think they're making those decisions, like the Eagles are making those types of decisions, it's like they're not. Or what the Texans have done, the Jags, I mean, on and on and on. So yeah, the seat is always at least warm. Nothing ever cools down. And so that's why like a conversation what Nick is pointing out of like, well, he was on the hot seat and this, that. Well, yeah. That's just the way it works. So it's just like you don't necessarily use that as a 100% indicator, quite frankly. And maybe some of understanding your strengths and weaknesses as a coach, as a player. I talk about this especially a lot. Like a fundamental aspect of a coach is understanding a player's strengths and weaknesses and understanding how to navigate them. When it's time to minimize their weaknesses, when it's time that they need to elevate their strengths, when it's time to actually bring up the floor of their weaknesses, when they recognize, nope, this is just who you are at this level, and we're not going to be able to improve it. So we do have to try our best to kind of work around it and I have to understand your strengths and weaknesses so I can know how to put you in a position to succeed, because that really is at the core of it what a coach is doing. I need to put you in a position to succeed. That is my fundamental job. If I can't put you in a position to succeed, then it's impossible for me to be a good coach. But what Sirianni does is he does put these players in positions to succeed, and he does instill an insane amount of belief in them. I don't have the time or the strength to go bring up those clips, but I did this in a previous video showing you where Ballin was having a conversation with, I forget who, where he's like, Sirianni believes in us. And they were talking about it on the field and on the bench. And then Sirianni comes up to him and he's like, I did that because I believed in you. And Ballin's like, see, I told you that. He did that because he believes in us. That means something. Because also at the core, and this is always hard to understand because these are grown men doing grown men things. At the core of it, man, these guys are still very much like kids. They've lived such weirdly specific lives, man. Like, that's just what happens when someone's like, hey, you're gonna just like get to keep playing a child's game and keep making all this money, and you get to build your whole life around it. Like, you live a very specific life. And so at the heart of it, like, that's why I love that clip with Baum, because he was a little kid in that moment. He was literally a 15-year-old boy talking to his boy on the bench and being like, coach believes in us. Do you believe it? Like, and it feels good. And yet he's obviously a grown man catching interceptions against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, right? Like, it's always, just look at how they partied after the parade. You see kids, they're still kids. All right, they can't even, they don't even know how to do that, right? And you're like, all right, which makes me a little uncomfortable. So understanding how to navigate that is such an art and a science. And Lane Johnson is a true grown-up. He actually is. He's been around for multiple coaches. He's kind of no nonsense, even though like he also kind of can seem like a big goofball. He is still kind of like no nonsense, and his personal life, he's been through some stuff, as he's spoken a lot about. So when he says Sirianni has evolved as a head coach, like, you can take that to the bank. You can take that to the bank. I guarantee you, Lane Johnson, if you get a real honest conversation with him, if you ask him out, was there a moment where you thought Sirianni was an awful coach? You would say, yeah, I thought Sirianni was an awful coach, and I honestly didn't really want anything to do with him. And then if you would ask him, well, do you feel that way anymore? I really believe that he would give an honest answer, like, no, I see a tremendous amount of value in what Sirianni brings to the table. And that's how it happens. It's not like you just sometimes you just enter the league and boom, you're just special and elite. Boom. I mean, you evolve, you grow as a coach. You get better. We talk about Sean McVay, and it's like, Sean McVay didn't win a Super Bowl without Matthew Stafford. Jared Goff wasn't good enough. And Jared Goff's offense never looked like what it did with Sean McVay than what it did with Ben Johnson and the Detroit Lions. Or excuse me, yeah, and the Detroit Lions. And I think Sean McVay is an unbelievable coach. An unbelievable coach. And if you said I had to pick right now, I would pick Sean McVay over Nick Sirianni. Because like I just said before, I'm more comfortable with someone who's going to really be calling the plays. I think it's a little bit more sustainable. You're less beholden to coordinators. But what I keep trying to push back on is now using that as a reason why we should not give Sirianni credit. That's really kind of what I always hammer home, which is the same style that I do it when we're talking about where is Jalen Hurts ranked in the Trent Dilfer. I just made the Trent Dilfer video and stuff. It's just like, well, wait a second. And what's really interesting is someone said this in the comment section on that Jalen Hurts Trent Dilfer video. He said, it's weird. They say that the NFL is a quarterback coach league for everybody, except for Hurts and Sirianni. And it's true. Remember when they said they'll never win a Super Bowl and that they were the worst quarterback coach tandem in the league? We talk about how coach quarterback duos are so important. And yet when it comes to Hurts and Sirianni, it's like, well, it's everything else but that. And it's like, well, why? And again, I bring a more nuanced look to it, because then I do factor in coordinators. And when the Eagles won, I wasn't like, that's all Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. I've never said that. I have gave heaps of praise on Fangio and Kellen Moore. And I'm never going to be here and sit here and say only Jalen Hurts would have won the Super Bowl with this team, or only Sirianni would have coached this team to a Super Bowl. I think there are teams in the past for, different franchises where that statement could be true, but not with the Eagles. I look at the Eagles as a complete organization. And this is what I said is, once Jalen Hurts and the Eagles won the Super Bowl, when everyone was like, oh, Lamar's better, Josh Allen's better, this, that, it's not, the Eagles have a better team. And I go, okay, if that's true, well, then build a better team. Coach better, hire better coordinators. It's like, well, it's on you then. It's on you, because this is what's so interesting to me. Because we'll have someone like Colin or Nick say that the Los Angeles Rams are a better run team with a better coaching staff and a better quarterback. If that's the case, then build a better team. Win the bigger games. Win that game against the Philadelphia Eagles when the Eagles gave you the door open. Win it. But you didn't. And there wasn't any magical reason why. Puka Nacua didn't get hurt at the wrong time. Stafford didn't twist his knee up like Jalen Hurts did. Like, so where is it? Where is the perfectly dialed play at the right moment then? That's what I want to know. Where was the awesome offensive game plan against the Philadelphia Eagles? And again, Sean McVay to me is a beast. Matthew Stafford is a beast. I think the Rams are is a highly well-run franchise. I believe in them without a shadow of a doubt. That's why it's like in these conversations, it's not interesting to me to try to rank, well, who's better? Because it's like, well, if all this other stuff is true, what you're saying, well, then why are they not coming out on top? Nick Wright fundamentally believes that Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford are an infinitely better coach-quarterback duo. They've been to one Super Bowl together. One Super Bowl. And you can say, well, they had this and that and this and that. Okay, find a way through it. The Philadelphia Eagles certainly did. They certainly did. They had their team in 21. Not good enough. Went out and made moves in 22. Were better. Came up short. Were not good enough in 2023. Made moves. Won the Super Bowl. Set records. So do it. Like that's what I always then call out fans if they always want to kind of push back. It's like, well, then do it. And that's why it really is kind of great. The Philadelphia Eagles right now are the perfect example of this. And they'll continue to be until someone else until someone else wins a Super Bowl. If the 49ers pull it off, or if, the Bills, the Ravens, and I could reference what they did. Oh, remember how they lost for the couple of years? Then they went out and took a big swing. They moved up and they drafted this and they did that, and then we can point to them. But right now it's been the Eagles. And it's been a masterclass. But I understand why someone like the Eagles get more organizational credit, because they were able to win a Super Bowl with a completely different roster, completely different coaching staff, and completely different quarterback. And so I get that. So I really do, but you shouldn't be knocked down a peg for being part of a well-run franchise. I mean, you can defend. For me, I look at it more where it's like, I'll defend the teams that have a more poorly run franchise. That's why I defend a Joe Burrow, because I'm like, what do you want Joe Burrow to do, man? I do believe if he was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, he would be winning Super Bowls. Because I believe in the franchise of the Philadelphia Eagles way more than I believe the franchise of the Cincinnati Bengals. But at the same time, what I'm not saying is that if the Philadelphia Eagles had any old quarterback, and sorry to use Dak Prescott again, but we just lumped Dak Prescott in there and said, well, the Eagles would be winning Super Bowls. And I don't believe that either. I'm not so sure that if they had Jason Garrett as their head coach, that they're winning Super Bowls in 2017 and whatnot. I'm like, I'm not confident in saying that. I'd have to really think about it, but my gut tells me probably not. So it's a conversation like this actually is so much more incredibly nuanced than, unfortunately, it's just like a segment like this. They just are like, hey, we got 4 minutes until commercial break. Let's just talk about Sirianni real fast. This will be fun. We can put Sirianni from John Madden and Andy Reid. And it's just like, and that's the problem, because the setup is too extreme. I don't even think the biggest Eagles fan will say that Sirianni is the second best coach of all time. You can't do that in 4 years anyway. You could, at most you can say he's on track to doing it, because technically that's a factual claim. But I think we still got to bring some nuance to even the biggest fandom we got out there. But it is weird to try to not give Nick Sirianni his respect, and it's the same thing with Jalen Hurts. Think about it. It's pretty remarkable. This will be my last point. It's pretty remarkable that the Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl with a bad head coach and a bad quarterback. I don't think it's actually ever been done. I went through this before, where it was like 80-some%. The vast majority of Super Bowls are won by Hall of Fame coaches or Hall of Fame quarterbacks, together most of the time. And for the times that it's not, okay, it's either an incredible fluke that is not repeated by balling out in multiple Super Bowls, or if you have a pretty good coach, but you have clearly a Hall of Fame quarterback, or you clearly have an awesome coach, especially usually on a specific side of the ball, and you have a pretty good quarterback. But in this situation, it's Sirianni's not that good, Jalen Hurts is not that good, yet they somehow found themselves to having record-setting multiple Super Bowls and multiple playoff runs. That has never happened in the NFL. There's always going to be an out because people say, what about Nick Foles? And that was what Colin Cowherd said. What about Trent Dilfer? It's like, these are completely different situations. And even someone like a Nick Foles has shown that he can play at a truly elite level. He showed that. He showed that in regular season. He showed that with, what does he have, the record for like 8 touchdown passes in a game or like something outrageous, I forget. Was up there in the most completions in a row. So he showed that he has that potential. He hasn't showed that he was sustainable enough to be able to do that. And he also kind of floated around the league. But that doesn't then somehow take away what Jalen Hurts has done. And Trent Dilfer, doing this, winning a Super Bowl with a 80.9 passer rating and 153 yards and 1 touchdown. Okay? That is not the same. 12 for 25, 48 completion percentage, 153 yards. We're really going to compare that to what Jalen Hurts did in multiple Super Bowls? We just keep having the wrong conversations, my friends. The wrong conversations. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Nick Sirianni? And I guess I just kind of lumped Jalen Hurts in there as well. But let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.